How's it going, everybody? ZBilbs back here with another ranking, and today I am going to be ranking my top 11 Ozzy Osbourne solo albums. So he's got 11 albums to date. I'm only counting his main studio albums, no live albums, no cover albums, so I'm not going to be counting Undercover. Um, and this is just my list, it's not the right list. Comment your own rankings in the comments below. I'm definitely going to have some controversial picks here and there, but I'm relatively new to the metal scene, so just keep it civil, and without further ado, let's just go. So coming in at dead last place, I would say this is the only Ozzy album that I genuinely dislike. There's really only one good song on there, and that is Scream. Now, Scream came out in 2010, and it really feels like kind of just the end of the good Ozzy era. I know a lot of people think that the good Ozzy era, ended with Randy Rhoads. Some people say pretty much everything after No More Tears is bad. For me, Ozzy isn't like this when it goes to his albums. It's kind of like this, and for me, Scream is the absolute bottom of the barrel. For me, I really love Let Me Hear You Scream, but other than that, it's just boring song after boring song after boring song. Let's see, I kind of enjoy Time and Soul Sucker, but not enough that I would put it on a playlist or anything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember who did the guitar on this. It wasn't Zach Wild. All in all, there was just nothing interesting with this album. There was way too much auto-tune. It really felt like Ozzy was just kind of out of it. Which I know other people will say the same thing about some other albums coming up, but I'll try to explain myself when I get there. All right, but moving on to my number 10 spot. I'm already about to get really controversial here, but I've got No Rest for the Wicked. Now, this is another album that really does not do it for me. I know a lot of people really love this album, but for me, there's two songs that I enjoy from it, and that's Demon Alcohol and Tattooed Dancer. I know there's a couple other in there that people consider absolute classics. I know this is Zach Wild's second, or was it? Oh no, it was his first album. Yes, it was Zach Wild's first album, and a lot of people are a big fan of that stuff, and they think this is the best Zach Wild album there is, with maybe an exception of No More Tears. But I don't know. For me, there's just nothing particularly bad about this album. Just no songs really stuck out to me as something really interesting. Even the two that I commented I enjoy, it's just like I like them, but I don't love them. It's for me, it's just a really sort of okay album, and nothing really special about it. Coming in at number 9, I have Osmosis. Now, this is another one of, I would say, the more middling albums from the Zach Wild era, which there are a handful. What keeps this ahead of other albums is that it has one of my all-time favorite Ozzy songs in Perry Mason. I think that song is absolutely spectacular. It has some other really solid songs in My Jekyll Doesn't Hide and See You on the Other Side. There's some other okay songs, but for me, those are the three that I think are really solid. Other than that, it's kind of like No Rest for the Wicked, where it's just like, yeah, it's all right. One thing I will say about this album, with this and another one that I'm just about to get to, really feel like the sound just completely feels different from other Ozzy stuff. Not in the more auto-tuned sound that he has in his later ones. It does sound a little auto-tuned, but almost feels a little bit techno. And I think that works to its favor in songs like Perry Mason, but other songs just feel just really off, just not good. All in all, an alright album, but it's better just listening to the better songs and just skipping the rest of it altogether. But moving on to number 8, ahead of Osmosis just by a hair, I have Down to Earth. Now, Down to Earth, it's relatively similar in my comments for Osmosis. It's one of the more, alright, middling Zach Wild era albums. Although I'd say no songs in there reach the heights of Perry Mason, it altogether has more consistent quality throughout. It has less bad songs in the mix than Osmosis does, which is what keeps it ahead of it by a bit. I'd say the standouts in this one for me is Facing Hell. That's probably my favorite from the album. I also really like Dreamer and See You on the Other Side. Other than that, it's just kind of mediocre. It feels really experimental. And also, what's up with the cover art on this one? I mean, that doesn't calculate into my album score, but it's really wacky. But, all in all, just kind of a meh Ozzy Osbourne album. Moving on to number 7, from here on up, it's all albums that I really thoroughly enjoy. And I know a lot of you there's definitely 2 albums that you probably surprised haven't been listed yet. And we're going to get to one of those right now in the number 7 spot, which is Black Rain. Now, I have seen this album put on the bottom of so many people's lists, saying that it's just the absolute worst of the worst when it comes to Ozzy, and it's just bad, and I wholeheartedly and thoroughly disagree. It honestly pains me to put it this low because there are some of my all-time favorite Ozzy songs on there, a lot of these being super underrated. The one song that I say gets a decent amount of credit on here is I Don't Want to Stop, and I absolutely love that song. But some more underappreciated songs I would say is Not Going Away, the title track Black Rain, Countdown's Begun, and The Almighty Dollar are all absolutely fantastic songs on there. The rest of them, there's some alright songs here and there, but nothing really stand out. I'd say those 5 that I've listed are absolutely great, and I don't know, it does have a little bit of the kind of weird techno vibe that was present in Down to Earth and Osmosis. And once again, it's a little bit hit or miss, but for the most part, I would say it's far more hit than miss when it comes to this album. But, let me know, why is this one so hated? I really don't understand it. I think it's an awesome album, only outclassed by some other ones that are just better. And moving on, speaking of a better album, getting into another controversial pick here. Honestly, it's all going to be controversial from here out. At number 6, I have got most people's number 1, and that is The Blizzard of Oz. This is Ozzy coming back from leaving the Black Sabbath. Everybody thinks he's done, and he pulls this one out, and it's just an all-time classic metal album, with classics in there. Some people's all-time favorite, definitely some of my favorites in the mix. My 4 from this that I absolutely love is Crazy Train, which some people say is overplayed, but I think most people admit it's still great. Mr. Crowley, one of the best guitar solos of all time. You've got Suicide Solution. You've got I Don't Know. There's some other in there that I think, like Mother Earth, that people really like. I enjoy a couple in there, but for me, it's the 4 standout ones, and then some more alright songs in there. That's the reason it's not as high as others, is because I love 4 of the songs, and the other ones are like, yeah, it's alright, but it's not great. So that's why it's not higher than it is. I know it's number 1 for a lot of people, but that's where I got number 6, Blizzard of Oz. And similarly, a lot of people's number 1 tends to be this next one that I've got, which is at 5, Diary of a Madman. I'm sorry this is low. I really love this album. Got absolutely great songs like the title track, Diary of a Madman. You got Tonight, which I think is absolutely under-celebrated in there. Sado, I don't like it as much as other people, but I like it a lot. You've got Flying High again, and you've got my favorite from this album, and I think a lot of people's favorite from the album, Over the Mountain, one of the absolute classic and best Ozzy Osbourne songs. There's definitely the rest of them. They're not bad, but not great. All in all, just a really, really solid album, but once again, there's some more coming up here that I just like a little more, such as this next album probably gonna make people really mad. This is the one thing that's gonna make people dislike, say you're the worst, you're a poser. At number 4, I've got Ordinary Man. I can, yeah. no, everybody hates this one, and I kind of get it because this one, out of all of the Ozzy Osbourne albums, it doesn't feel metal. That is the one thing. It's all over the place. You've got, the title track, Ordinary Man, which feels more of like an Elton John song. You've got two collabs with Post Malone. You've got, a super auto-tuned feel. You've got a brand new guitarist in Andrew Watts that's just like, what? Who is this guy? You've got, collabs with Slash, with Tom Morello. So this song, it's an absolute mishmash of stuff all over the place. And for most people, it's like, no, this isn't Ozzy. This isn't metal. Least favorite, second least favorite. I'm out. No, thank you. So I get that for most people. For me, I absolutely love the mishmash. I love all of the different stuff, the different styles. I love different sounding music. I love new, kind of all over the place. I'm not necessarily hardcore. It needs to be strictly metal. And that's why I love all these different types of stuff that we got going here. Yes, a little auto-tuned, a little messy, but standouts from this album, Straight to Hell, I think that's great. Just core metal song. You've got Scary Little Green Men. I love that one. That one's another one that's just sweet. There's some awesome guitar work in there. The title track, Ordinary Man, is probably my favorite from there. If you're really, an Ozzy fan and, just care about him in general, there's some really sort of deep emotional stuff. And I don't know, it almost gets me choked up just listening to it. It's just beautiful song. And you also got one of his collabs with Post Malone and then Travis Scott, Take What You Want From Me. I really like, even though it's not really metal, it's not really Ozzy, I still think it sounds great. And then Today's the End, another one that I think is just solid. The rest aren't, kind of meh. There's Under the Graveyard's all right. The rest of them are kind of weird, like Eat Me. That one's just no. Um, but man, I just love a lot of what this album has to offer. I understand why people are not going to agree. I don't think a single person would ever put this album this high, but it's my list. I'm sorry. I really like it. But yeah. And moving on to number 3, I have No More Tears. Now, this for me is absolutely the best of the best when we come to the Zakk Wylde era. I think most people would probably agree with that. Most people rank this album high or somewhat high. Um, while I would say this album actually has a surprising amount of songs that are just forgettable, just boring, it's also got a really solid handful of absolutely classic Ozzy songs, just fantastic songs. Like the title track, No More Tears, is absolutely fantastic. There's also some lesser praised songs in there that I think are amazing, like Hellraiser. Give that song a listen, it is great. You've got Desire, another more underrated Ozzy song. Then there's some more celebrated songs like Mama, I'm Coming Home, just a really great sounding, emotional song. And Mr. Tinker Train, which is really weird, but I absolutely love it. I think it just sounds wild and funky, and there's some absolutely great guitar work in there. All in all, just making just one of the most essential, just solid Ozzy albums out there. But moving on to number 2, this one I know is generally split 50-50 of, or maybe something like that, of people who love it and people who hate it, and that is The Ultimate Sin. Now this is the absolute core glam rock era for Ozzy, and I know a lot of people hate this album because of that, my father included, because he really loved the earlier Ozzy stuff. He got to Ultimate Sin and he's like, this is glam rock, this is bad. And I agree, it is kind of weird. It's a little bit off sounding here and there, but I also think that I just love it. The sound on this, the guitar work from Jakey Lee, and just some of these songs are just so fun, so catchy, and still absolutely metal in my opinion, and it doesn't stray too much into the glam stuff. You just got some great songs. I love the guitar work on Never. Never Know Why. It's a little cheesy, but I really like it. You've got the title track, The Ultimate Sin, which is great. You've got Secret Loser, which is kind of weird, but again, great. It's a very weird, but I just think it's a very fun, solid album. And then my favorite and one of my all-time favorite Ozzy songs is on here as well, and that is Shot in the Dark. I absolutely love that song. There's a couple other solid songs that aren't as great. I honestly don't think there's a bad song in here. There's definitely some that I like better than others. But all in all, I just think this is a fantastic Ozzy album, and is almost not quite to my top spot, but very good, very close. But moving on to my number one, the only one left. Most people would not put this here, but number one, I've got Bark at the Moon. Bark at the Moon, I think, is one of the most slept on albums out there. When people think of early Ozzy stuff, it's Diary of a Madman and Blizzard of Oz. People are like Bark at the Moon. Some people are like kind of high. Some people are like mid tier for this one. I don't think a single person, maybe like one or two, would put it over the first two stuff, but I guess I'm one of those crazy people. I think this is fantastic. I just, Jakey Lee, his albums are the top two for me. I really love his guitar work. It's not quite as heavy as Zach. It's not quite as, awesome, just super great musicianship as Randy Rhoads, but there's just some really fun, awesome, catchy songs in here. When it comes to this album, why it's higher than others, well, besides the title track, Bark at the Moon, which is one of my favorite Ozzy songs, it doesn't have as many absolutely classic songs in there, but just the quality is the most consistent and most solid out of any other Ozzy album, in my opinion. I don't think there's a bad song in here, but there are, I think, 7 out of the 10 on this album I absolutely love and I will listen to anytime. Those are, Bark at the Moon, You're No Different, Spiders. You've got Waiting for Darkness, which is probably my second favorite song from this list. I think that one's super underrated. It's excellent. And you've got So Tired, you've got Slow Down, and you've got Center of Eternity, which that one, if I remember right, actually has the kind of like the bell sound effect at the beginning or end of it that harkens back to the original Black Sabbath song. And I love the style on this album. I love the consistency on this album, and I just, it's my favorite Ozzy album, and that's all I got for you. So let me know how wrong I am in the comments below. Let me know if you want me to rank my top 10 or 20 Ozzy songs. I'll probably get to some other bands in the future. I'll get to Black Sabbath. I'm probably going to do a review of Senjutsu when it comes out, and then I'll rank the Iron Maiden albums. So just, let me know what you thought in the comments, and that's it. So see you later.